I am Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fuchida. But on the morning of December 7th, 1941, I was the architect of the sky. My voice, crackling over the radio, pronounced the words that would ignite a Pacific hellfire. Tora, Tora. I am Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fuchida. Or at least I was. My name is now a footnote, a call sign in a history book. But on the morning of December 7th, 1941, I was the architect of the sky. I led the first wave. I gave the signal. My voice, crackling over the radio, pronounced the words that would ignite a Pacific hellfire. Tora, Tora. But before I was a commander, I was a man in a small cockpit, watching the sun rise over a silent ocean, knowing I was flying my country and myself toward a point of no return. This is not the strategic account you will find in your archives. This is the memory of the wind in the wires, the taste of fear like copper on the tongue, and the moment a perfect plan collided with the messy, human truth of war. The night before, aboard the aircraft carrier Akagi, there was no revelry, only a profound vibrating quiet. We had practiced this for months, the tight turns over Kagoshima Bay, mimicking the narrow valleys of Oahu. We knew the American fleet's Sunday routines better than our own. This was to be Kessin, the decisive battle. One blow to shatter their Pacific power, to force a negotiated peace, to secure the oil and resources our empire desperately needed. The logic was cold, clean, and absolute. As I inspected my Nakajima B-5N bomber, the Kate, I ran my hand over its sleek fuselage. It was not a machine of war in that moment. It was a scalpel. We were surgeons, about to perform a high-risk operation on the body of a sleeping giant. We launched at 6 o'clock into a darkness that felt infinite. My plane was among the first to claw its way off the heaving deck and into the void. Below, the black sea merged with the black sky. There was no horizon. My world shrank to the green glow of my instrument panel, the steady rumble of the engine, and the faint silhouette of the wingman to my left. For nearly 2 hours, we flew in strict radio silence, a swarm of 183 aircraft held together by discipline and a shared, terrifying purpose. I checked and rechecked my charts, the winds aloft, the bearing, the estimated time. My mind was a crystal chamber of calculations. I allowed no other thought to enter, not of my wife, not of my children. To think of them was to invite a fatal softness. Then, the first hint of light, a gray smudge in the east that slowly bled into a pale, watery blue. And there, where the map said there should be nothing, was the rugged green outline of the Hawaiian Islands, Oahu. My breath caught. It was real. The planning, the models, the briefings, they coalesced into this tangible landmass. We had found our target. As we closed the distance, the details emerged through the morning mist. The sharp green peaks of the Koolau Range, the white lines of surf on the beaches. And there, in the heart of Pearl Harbor, lay the American Pacific Fleet. My heart hammered against my ribs, not with fear, but with a terrifying, transcendent clarity. It was all there. The battleships, 8 of them, moored neatly in pairs along Ford Island. They looked peaceful, inert, vulnerable. I keyed my microphone. My voice, when it came, was steady, devoid of the storm inside me. Tenkai. Form attack positions. Across the formation, wings dipped in acknowledgement. The fighters climbed for air superiority. The dive bombers, the Vals, positioned themselves. My level bombers, the Kates with their modified naval torpedoes and heavy armor-piercing bombs, began our run. We swung around to approach from the northwest, the sun at our backs, blinding the defenses below. The world outside my cockpit became a panorama of surreal beauty and impending violence. I could see cars moving on the roads, tiny wisps of smoke from morning chimneys. It was a Sunday, a day of rest. The absurdity of it struck me. We were about to shatter this postcard. At 7:49, I made the final confirmation. No enemy fighters rose to meet us. No barrage of anti-aircraft fire streaked the sky. The surprise was total, absolute. A hollow feeling expanded in my chest. This was too easy. Victory, when handed to you so completely, feels like a trap. But there was no time for philosophy. I pressed the transmitter button again. The 3 words I had rehearsed 1,000 times left my lips, crisp and clear. Tora! Tora! The sky erupted. It was not an eruption of sound from below, but of motion from our own ranks. The dive bombers tipped over into their near-vertical dives, their scream a physical thing that tore at the morning calm. Then came the first plumes of water geysers of white that sprouted around the battleships as torpedoes found their marks. A direct hit on the USS Oklahoma. She immediately began a slow, agonizing roll onto her side, like a great beast fatally wounded. Men, specks from this height, scrambled across her tilting deck before diving into the water already slick with oil. My group continued its level run. My bombardier, hunched over his sight, was muttering adjustments. Our target was Battleship Row. The air was still curiously quiet, the American defenses not yet organized. The only resistance was the frantic, futile firing of a few machine guns from the decks, their tracers arcing lazily, well below us. I felt a strange, detached pity. They were like children throwing stones at a typhoon. Then, at 8:06, the world changed. A bomb, dropped by my own squadron, penetrated the forward deck of the USS Arizona. There was a heartbeat of silence. Then the ship disintegrated. A column of flame, orange and black, shot 1,000 feet into the air, followed by a rolling, thunderous explosion that I felt in my teeth and bones. The Arizona was lifted out of the water by the force, her forward structure vanishing in the cataclysm. The fireball was a living thing, consuming everything it touched. Debris pieces of steel, guns, bodies rained down across the harbor. The shockwave hit my plane, a sudden violent punch that shoved us sideways in the sky. In that instant, the surgical strike ended, the clinical detachment shattered. My hands were slick on the controls. That was not a ship dying. That was a small sun being born from an ocean of blood and metal. The sheer, overwhelming scale of the destruction short-circuited my military mind. The numbers, 1,177 men on that ship alone, became not a statistic, but a silent, screaming presence that filled my cockpit. The Arizona's burning pyre became the heart of the new world we had created. A world of smoke, and fire, and a rage that would now know bounds. The return flight to the Akagi was a somber affair. The radio chatter was subdued. There were no triumphant cheers. We had done it. We had achieved a tactical masterpiece, a surprise attack studied for generations to come. We had sunk or damaged 8 battleships, destroyed hundreds of aircraft, and killed over 2,400 Americans. The giant lay bleeding in the water. But as I looked back at the distant, black smudge staining the Hawaiian sky, the cold certainty that had taken root in my gut during the attack blossomed into full, chilling dread. We had aimed for the head, but we had struck the heart, and in doing so, we had not crippled America. We had awakened it. We had replaced its divisions with a single, unified, burning purpose. We had handed them, in their moment of greatest shock and loss, the one thing we sought to avoid, an unwavering will to wage total war. I landed on the Akagi to quiet congratulations. Admiral Nagamo, cautious by nature, refused to authorize a third wave to destroy the fuel stores and repair facilities. His decision was called a mistake by historians. To me, in that moment, it felt like mercy, or perhaps the first flicker of fear. They would call it a day of infamy. For me, it was the day I learned that the most perfect victory can sow the seeds of the most absolute defeat. We had not won a war that morning. We had merely turned the key in a lock, unleashing a fury across the Pacific that would not be spent until it had consumed us all. I led the first wave, and I knew, with a clarity that haunts me to this day, that I was also leading us into an abyss from which there would be no return.